Welcome to Wealth Talks podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how young adults handle their finances and if we think today's young adults will turn out okay.
We wonder, what will the world look like when today's young adults become the middle-aged people of tomorrow?
Well, things are going to change, that's for sure. But will they be better or will they be worse?
Whenever we're talking about a group of people, today we're talking about young adults, we lump everyone together. We know that not all young adults behave the exact same way, but we're going to talk about some of the trends that we see. And of course, there will be young adults that don't fit this model at all.
That being said, let's talk about 18 to 31-year-olds or 34-year-olds as a group. They, on an average, are still receiving financial assistance from their parents. About more than 50% of them are.
That could be a drain on their parents' financial resources as well, because we see the middle generation helping their parents who are getting older and also helping their children, and they're having a hard time putting money away for their own retirement, for their own golden years. And so the people that are young adults now, those 18 to 34-year-olds, if they could be financially sufficient, supporting themselves, it would help the entire economy. Over half of those adults still receiving financial assistance from their parents. That's a little bit sad.
It is, especially when you realize that this same age group has a much higher suicide rate than any other group of the population.
And 7 out of 10 people in this group say that they have a hard time setting long-term goals because of the economic uncertainty that they're facing. They either don't have the vision for the future or they don't have enough certainty about the future to feel like they can set a long-term goal. That's sad.
And I believe there's some reasons why those people are more prone to suicide and why they're afraid of setting long-term goals. And I think it's the dichotomy that we're seeing between the male and female in this generation. In this generation, the 18 to 34-year-olds, there's a large percentage, 40% of those women in this group are identifying as strongly liberal in their political and moral views. That's 4 out of 10.
That's high.
It is high. Contrast to that, there's about 3 out of 10 of this same age group in the male population are very strongly conservative. The catch link between both of these is that 71% of this age group says they will not marry someone with contrary political or moral views. And we know statistically that married couples and families create more success and are happier individuals and earn more money than single individuals. That's just an average norm for all populations.
It used to be that young people finished up with high school and then they went to college or got married, purchased a home, started into life in that way, getting a job and moving forward. But education right now is up 153% since 1980.
Yes.
And the cost of homes has also increased. And so these young people are kind of trapped, if you will, seeing these rising costs and maybe being overwhelmed. But I also think there has to be some other things that are contributing to these feelings of suicide, drastic political views. There has to be something else contributing to that.
I think there is. I think that when people can't plan for the future, and 71% of these people are afraid to set long-term goals, either financially or otherwise, then what are they living for? They're living for today, and today is very empty unless we have a purpose to live for, that we know that we're making a difference in the world. And even speaking from a psychological or medical aspect, we know that when we benefit someone else's life, that the hormones in our brain go up and make us feel better about ourselves. The endorphins and all those, chemicals that our brain produces, because that's the way we're wired as human beings.
People will occasionally get depressed about the way life isn't moving forward the way they thought it would or something like that. But that can be a wake-up call, but you don't have to stay down. if you get down. And that's important to recognize. You don't have to stay down. You can get back up and keep going.
And young people, many people in general, and we're specifically talking about young adults today, they don't know how to do that. They get discouraged, and then they allow themselves to be under that discouragement instead of saying, oh, I'm discouraged about this. All right, now let's move on. Let's do something about that. And sometimes they don't even know how to go about doing something different.
Well, we talked about the cost of housing going way up. It's gone up 24% since I was born in the 60s. And we talk about the increase in education, but young adults going to college today are not getting an education that translates into earning more money than what their parents earned. And in the 1940s, 90% of young adults earned more than their parents. By the 1980s, that had dropped to 50%. And today, there's only 20% of young adults that have the potential to earn more than their parents did. They're all educated. They're all going to school. But what has it done for them? It has left them a kind of a void, an emptiness, because if all they're seeking is the material gain, it's lacking because it's not producing the income that they thought it was going to produce for them.
And we do see many people that are choosing careers or a college career path, whether it's going to college or whether they're going straight into the marketplace. They're choosing a career path that they think will be the most economic for them. Regardless if they have the interest in the subject or not, or regardless if they have the skills for that particular line of work. And that's a case where they ask the money question, what's going to produce the most money? And while that's not a bad question, that's not necessarily a good first question.
People skipping college and going right into working, figuring out what they want to do, I think that's a great thing. As far as just picking the careers that they think are going to earn the most money and trying to go after those, yes, that's not necessarily the best first question to be asking.
I remember sitting on a high school panel of senior students, and they had to go and mirror a career for their career day. And we were to come in as professionals and give these people feedback. And I remember one young man, he had mirrored an emergency room physician. And he wanted to be an emergency room physician because of the money he could make and the power it gave him. As a practicing physician at the time, and the fellow sitting next to me was a practicing dentist, we warned him those were bad motives to get into the ER.
Well, just recently, I heard about a young adult who is attending college, and she was kind of torn between two different majors. Two areas of interest. She decided to go into a classroom and be assisting in a classroom because she really thought she wanted to go into teaching. Well, it wasn't long after she was in the classroom that she realized, this is not what I want to do. And it's a good thing that she realized that before she completed her educational path, because then she would have been limited to the opportunities for her. And so I think that happens with a lot of young adults. They get this idea of what they want. They go in this career path and they get to the end and they find out, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And maybe they have student loans that the income that they're making isn't providing what they thought it was going to be in the light of the payments required by these student loans that they've acquired.
It makes it very hard for them to change directions at that time, whereas if they would have said, oh, I'm interested in teaching, and maybe they went and volunteered as a teacher's assistant for a while, they would have found out, oh, this really isn't where my interest lies. And then they could switch, and they wouldn't have had the incredible debt of those student loans hanging over their head and feeling like they had to stay in that career and maybe not be the best teacher because of that passion that was lost.
It seems like some young adults have been trapped in the traditional education route, and then they get to the end of that path and find, I didn't want to do this. Some young adults are getting trapped in going after the money. They're going to do whatever pays the most, and then they might find they don't really like that. but it just paid the most, and so they've been following that rabbit trail. And then you also have some young people that are getting trapped in the idea of following their passion, even if it doesn't make anything. It's just about trying to go out and get fulfillment. That it doesn't usually come that way. One of the things that young people can do to find fulfillment in their work is to look at the abilities that God has given them and then get to work and figure out what they do like along the way. Figure out what does pay the money, because that is important, that you should be able to make a living with your God-given abilities. And where you find the intersection of those things is where you're going to find the value, the happiness, and the fulfillment that you're looking for.
A few episodes ago, we interviewed our daughter Anna with Bread and Butter Baking, and she started baking as a side hustle. In 2020, when we had all the shutdowns, she would get messaged by people and they would say, could you bake us some brownies, or could you bake us some cookies? We just need a mood elevation around here. We just need some feel good. And she loved doing that for people. And now with her bakery cart, she's supplying cinnamon rolls and breads and cakes and cookies. And when people meet her, they come up and give her a hug. And so she's taken her business into something she enjoys doing, but she also enjoys the response from customers. The money has to be there to make it a viable business.
And she enjoys the baking process.
And she enjoys the response from customers.
We have to find in life something that we can do for other people. And when we do that for other people, we have to not reject the rewards that can come from us, the money that is happening for that, even though it might make us just feel really good to do it, even if we didn't get paid for it. It's important that we combine all of those together so that we can really be successful and really find the happiness that people are looking for today.
And I'm sure she experiences things in bread and butter baking that she doesn't like to do, such as dishes or some of the running around doing the shopping or some of the bookkeeping. But that's part of work. Not everything are we going to enjoy. So very young people, they can learn to help with yard work. They can help with pets. They can help with babysitting. Are they going to enjoy every bit of that? Or are they going to feel extreme fulfillment? Not necessarily. But those little things lead to other things where they can find that they add value.
And wherever you can develop skills to add value, that's a key part, because Proverbs 22 tells us that, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men.
We have talked about what we have noticed with young adults in modern day. And when we get back from the break, we're going to talk about what could happen next and how we raised our own children.
While we're on break, I wanted to ask you to review the Wealth Talk show on Apple Podcasts. Over the years, we've received several reviews. Most of them were positive, but there are a couple negative ones. And Apple, for some reason, is choosing to feature those reviews, so it looks like our show has a 2-star rating. We're hoping by getting some more recent reviews, Apple will feature those and reflect a more accurate rating for the show overall. So please go and review the Wealth Talk show on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
The future is full of possibilities for everyone. There will be people who take the opportunity to make possibilities into realities, and there will be others that let possibilities remain possibilities because they don't want the commitment or to put in the work.
There are people of all ages that look back on life and they say, man, I wish I'd have bought Microsoft when it first started. I'd be a multimillionaire now. Or, wow, why didn't I see that Amazon was going to blow up like it did and I would have bought stock in it? Or, oh, that place where CVS is on the corner, if I would have bought that property for $200,000 5 years ago, I could have made $1 million. But they've never taken any effort to have a plan to do anything. And so those possibilities have just flown by and they've never turned them into reality.
Plan is a key word there. We have to have a plan. And just because we have a plan, it doesn't mean that our plan is going to take off and be rewarded like if we had bought Amazon or Microsoft, whatever it is. But we have to have a plan to start working. Everything that is of value started by a plan. A house that is built was built from a plan.
A car that was built had a plan. The road it drives on had a plan. The building that you go to work in has a plan. Everything has a plan.
If you want to arrive at a destination, drive to a certain spot, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan to get in your car. You have to have a plan for a route. That route plan might change a little bit, but it's definitely got to get from point A to point B.
What happens in life if we don't have a plan, it's kind of like motivation. Everything you do, if you're motivated, will be better than not. And the same thing with a plan. A plan may not get you from A to B, but if you shoot for B, you're going to get farther than just staying a day all the time. Sure. That's why it's so important to have a plan. And plans can change. Plans aren't something that you have to say, oh, well, this is my plan. I can't do anything else. Times change. Your emotions change. The reality around you changes. And so our plans have to be flexible enough so that we can change with the flow.
That's very true. Plans do change. And so many people use that as an excuse not to plan. Oh, well, because it might change, or I might not make the goal that I set. But it's more important to plan and have those plans not turn out, because then you're at least making progress in a direction. It's very hard to take somebody that's at 0 and make you go in any direction. But if you're going in one direction already, it's easier to turn and readjust to go in another direction.
It's important to have a plan, but it's also important, like in basketball, that you can pivot. Because if you can't pivot in basketball, you're trapped.
There you go.
But
Great
a pivot
analogy.
allows you to turn to a different direction in 360 degrees and still accomplish what you were hoping to accomplish if you were driving.
And plans are good. They're good to have a plan, but also having long-range plans. So if we always plan for what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, that could be good, but it doesn't allow us to accomplish a long-term goal. So we have to look for a long-term goal of what we want our success to look like. And this is what we did raising children. We held a little baby in our arms, and yes, we wanted to get through the next 10 minutes, the next day, how about the next night, But we also thought about, what do we want for the future? What do we want their adulthood to look like? Do we want to have a relationship with this child? What do we want for their future? And then we kept that as a goal in mind, but then we had to work from point A to get to that point B, but there was going to be a lot of points in between and a lot of days and a lot of times, but we couldn't let go of that sight of what was in the future for that child.
You're talking about what the Bible talks about when it says the people perish for lack of vision. If we don't envision what we could accomplish in the future and what we want to accomplish in the future, then we're just going to stagnate and we're going to rot right where we're at. And we're never going to be able to be the success that we would really like to be deep down.
The other thing that happens to derail plans is entertainment, because it's an easy escape from doing the work that is necessary to make those plans a reality. And we see this all over today with young adults, is they're on their phone all the time, or they're watching a movie, or they're spending so much time on social media and all the other entertainment options that are available today really become distractions from what they want most. And I think it was Ziegler that said the chief cause of unhappiness is people trading what they want now for what they want most. And that happens. It's very easy to escape to those things. Not that any of those things are bad in moderation, but if that takes over and hijacks your plans, that can definitely be a downer.
That entertainment mentality really is the vision many people have in life, is I want to just work until I can retire and just be entertained the rest of my life, or go on vacation, or do this or that, instead of seeing that their work that they're doing right now, what they're doing right now, is what is creating their happiness. A bad vision can be just as bad as not having a vision at all.
Well, entertainment in and of itself is not a bad thing. But thinking about the plans you have for your future, you want to make sure that you plan your entertainment, Plan it for a certain amount every day or a certain amount every week. Have that to enjoy and look forward to. And if it's not in your plans, you have to decide, hey, I can't spend more time on the social media because that interferes with my other plan. I'm planning for this amount every day. And it is good to have entertainment and recreation. Rabbi Lapin, in his book, Thou Shalt Prosper, says you should enjoy a little bit of retirement every day. And that is that recreation. And whether it's in video game format or social media or a movie, you've got to plan for it so that you can still keep your overall plans.
Entertainment should be a spice in our lives, not an end goal or destination that we or an escape that takes us away from our true productivity. One of the ways to overcome this, if you have a problem with that, is to make a plan so that you are productive each and every day, and that you get right to that early in the day.
And you plan for that little piece of reward. You do this work and you're going to reward yourself with this. Or, even like with diets, some people say you need to reward yourself at least once a week and have an ice cream cone, because you are pursuing this goal, this plan that you have, this vision that you have of being thin. But if you deny yourself, you become all work and no play makes Jack a very dull boy.
I think something else young adults face is they're not used to making plans for themselves. They're used to, when they were young, their parents made plans for them. Then their teachers made plans. Their professors made plans. Their coaches made plans. Their boss made a plan. And they didn't realize that they could make a plan for themselves. So any free time they had, well, they just used it however. But you can make a plan for yourself, whether you are going to college, whether you are at a job. You can make the plans that you want for yourself, both your time off and how you use your time when you are being employed. You can make a plan for yourself and follow it.
And then there's those of all age groups that plan, and never take action. And this could be because they're lazy. This is because they could be fearful. It could be for a lot of reasons. But when we were raising our kids, Michelle, we always wanted them to be involved in the work that we were doing. I remember, especially on the weekends when I wasn't going into the office, all the boys and even some of the girls would gather around. What are you going to do today, Dad? Outside. What work are you going to do? And they were so excited to be involved in that. I remember them climbing up in the kitchen and saying, what are you making, Mom? Can I stir? You had them involved in the activities that you were doing. And that keeps them from developing a fear of taking action on their plans, but it also keeps them from being lazy. And laziness, I think, is a huge problem, especially in America, because when foreigners come into this country, many of them just go right to work when they come into this country legally, and they get right busy, and very few foreigners that have come into this country legally are lazy. They're here to work because America has the opportunity for them to succeed.
It's really a mindset and the training that we do of ourselves, of our children, if we have children, but we can even do it with ourselves. To realize that we're working a plan, the work that we do to do that has more meaning. It's not just, I don't really enjoy cleaning up this bathroom. It's part of our plan. We are getting this bathroom clean today. It changes our mindset and our perspective about what we're working for. And then when we start saving 10% of everything we make, that's what we should be saving, then our plan is allowing us to create money jingling in our pocket, or money that we can have earning for us. And so then the perhaps sometimes mundane work that we do is figuring into the plan of the future that we're building for ourselves.
I read a story on the Daily Mail this last week that really was fascinating because it's kind of along the same lines that we raised our kids about money. And a lot of people fail today because they don't know how to manage money. They don't know what to do with it, and they're spending more than they're making, or they're not saving enough. And this multimillionaire in this article was saying he does not give his kids an allowance because that develops an entitlement behavior. And that's what's happening in America today. There's too many people that have an entitlement mentality that says the government should take care of me. What this multimillionaire did is he had certain chores that his children had to accomplish, and if they didn't accomplish them, he didn't pay them for them. And that's putting a dose of reality into the world, and it's helping them get a mindset, like you're talking about, that is saying, oh, work is good because it allows me to succeed, it allows me to do the things I want to, and it allows me to feel better about myself.
That allowance mentality is really the idea of a universal basic income, that everybody should have a paycheck just for being alive. It continues out of childhood into adulthood, and then it becomes a political issue.
Which becomes an economic issue for everyone to have to deal with.
It does.
We've talked a lot about success and happiness and everything. What is a good definition of success? What makes you successful?
Zig Ziglar had a definition of success that he wrote when he was trying to publish one of his books. And the publisher sent it back and said, you're talking about the top, but you haven't defined what the top is. And so he wrote a description of what the top is. And I'm not going to read it all here, but I have a few key paragraphs that would be good to think about as we think, what is success? What is the top that we're looking for? And he says, you are at the top when you clearly understand that failure is an event, not a person. That yesterday ended last night and today is a brand new day. When you can look back in forgiveness, forward in hope, down in compassion, and up with gratitude. You recognize, confess, develop, and use your God-given physical, mental, and spiritual abilities to glorify God and for the benefit of mankind. He said, you're at the top when you stand in front of the creator of the universe, and he says to you, well done, thou good and faithful servant.
Success is still available. Success might look different to you than it does to somebody else. It might have changed over the years of what success really is. But the good thing is it's still available, and it's still just as sweet as ever.
If anyone, young or old, rich or poor, man or woman, will do what it takes, success can still be theirs.
We will have to watch and see what this next generation chooses. But I think it will be consistent with history. Some people will put in the work to succeed, and some people won't. Hopefully, the number of people who will put in the work to succeed will increase, because that will make the world a better place.
If you have young children, make sure that you involve them in everything that you do, financially or otherwise, so that when they become young adults, they don't have to figure out everything from scratch. And come back next week when we have a revolutionary episode about mindset. We're going to talk about how to think right here on Wealth Talks.